So now you've read chapter 1. This is after you've read. There was a word in there. It's obstiferous, and that meant noisy or difficult to control. I just thought you might like to know what that meant. It's not going to be a vocabulary word. It's definitely not a spelling word. It's just FYI. Richard the First was Robin Hood's father, and he's Norman. And did you catch that it's he's, I think, and I'm not really sure if he's the 4th generation or if Robin Hood or Locksley, he's also called, if he's the 4th generation. But anyway, Richard the First is actually Robin Hood's father, and he was the king. His brother John is acting as king in his stead. So it was, I think Henry was their father, and then there was like another generation or two before that. I just thought that was interesting. I didn't know if you caught that or not. We talked about vexation and then the classes. So you have the noble class, the nobility class, and then you have the gentry, also known as the Franklins. Excuse me. And then you have servants. Or you've got, like your regular people, and then you've got servants down here somewhere. That was pretty much it. 4 generations later. So the Normans have come in, and they speak French. 4 generations later, and they still can't get the Saxons to speak French. Thought that was interesting. So they have this language that becomes English. That's the middle between German and then Norman French is their English, and I forget what they call it, and I don't see it right here right now. But anyway, all the laws, all the court proceedings, because there's being at court, so that would be where the king and all all their ranks, but that would be like where the king sits and they're at court. That they all spoke the French there, so the Saxons would have no idea what they're speaking. And in court, where their laws and their judges were handing down verdicts, and you were being accused and you're going on trial, all that was also done in French. They didn't speak the common language, and so the Saxons, of course, would have no idea. Fair trial? Who knows? They could have been given recipes for chicken soup for all they knew and said, okay, hang them. I don't know. So I thought that was important. Let's see. And of course, they had Norman kings, and we talked about the foresters having the right to cut off the claws already. I looked that up, and vets get very upset about people who cut dogs' nails wrong. It is really a bad thing, apparently. There's much vexation over it, in fact. So, and then antipathy is deep-seated feeling of dislike. I wanted to bring that out. Let's see. Yeah, they came up with one blended language, and that's the precursor to our English. Let's see. Don't you think that Sir Walter Scott's imagery is amazing? It's very wordy, but it really is amazing. And then the primeval vestment, that's just their clothes that they were talking about. A thrall is a servant. And then Cedric the Saxon, he is gentry. He's like just a step below nobility, but he also owns land. Now, grotesque, when they were talking about Wamba's clothes, and they said grotesque, they didn't mean gross or ugly or haunting. That's not the definition there. It's comical. Since he's a jester, I'm gonna, because there's like a lot of definition there. It could be comical, ugly, or distorted. And since his clothes are kind of old, maybe they had become distorted. With the paintings on because he's talking about the purple grotesque ornaments that they tried to paint on there. I'm thinking that's what it was. And gaiters are kind of leggings that they would wear from their ankle up to their knee to protect their legs. If you've ever seen snake chaps, that's kind of like what they are. And then he had bells on his hat. So, yeah, can you imagine? If you weren't, if you were kind of dingy anyway and they put bells on your head. A hussar is 15th century light horseman. It's Hungarian. So they talk about they make a comparison. I keep saying she because she's the one that I listen to from. Anyway, it's a she. A scrip, S-C-R-I-P, scrip, is a small bag or wallet. Apathy, that's the lack of interest, enthusiasm, or concern. It's kind of in a state of rest or tranquility. Let's see. Okay, the interchange between Girth and Wamba is pretty hysterical, I think. It's very tongue-in-cheek, and it's the English dry humor. And if you get it, Wamba is supposed to be said to be a fool, but he's actually pretty smart. But he goes, "Oh, no, I'm just a fool." And he does this. I've gotten through over half the book, and he does this a lot. And in the day, in reality, not just in this fictional book, but my research shows, now I sound like what's her name on School Bus, but the jesters could get away with saying a lot because of their position. They were thought to be fools, and so they could get away with making jokes or jests or mocking their masters or the lords or the monks or the Knights Templars or even the kings and the princes, because everybody's like, oh, he's just a fool. He's just the jester. So they could get away with saying a lot. And so they can make all these political jabs and statements without getting into trouble. So they could spread the word, kind of, sort of, without any repercussions. So I thought that was interesting. And then it's a very political statement, believe it or not, to discuss. And this is where they were talking about Girth and Wamba, when they were talking about, somebody could have their head for speaking so freely. I'm sorry, my hair is bombing. So for speaking so freely about the swine versus the pork. It's swine when the Saxons are out watching it, but when it's prepared and it's good for the French, for the Normans, then it's pork. And so I thought it's really, you can't take it at face value. And that's one thing I want to say about Sir Walter Scott's, about this book. You can't take it at face value. There's a lot of layers there. There's a lot of deep things. And I didn't catch it on the first reading. Like I said, I don't know how many times I read chapter 1 and listened to it, and read and listened to it. And that's just kind of Nana's part of my learning issue. Sometimes I have to hear it and read it together to get it, the full message. I was going to go through all the vocab words and everything here, but this one's getting a little long. A druidical, that's having to do with members of a religious order in ancient Gaul, Britain, and Ireland. So, because he talks in the imagery, he talks about the druidical ruins on the hill with the stones. It was some religious order back then. And in King Arthur, they talk about the Druids, and they are sort of a magical, witchy sort of character. Saint Dunstan Saxon, he's the saint and archbishop of Canterbury in the 10th century. Now this one is the one I wanted to get to. King Oberon, the fairy king in Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night Dream. So here Wamba is. He's the fool. He's the jester, right? But he's coming up with Shakespeare quotes. Wamba's got more going on than what you might think. And then the Miriam is pestilence or plague. And then, of course, we talked about Eamus again. And then the chivalry code. I want to discuss that because the Normans, they're going to talk a lot about chivalry, what is chivalrous and what is not, and yet they don't practice it. The Saxons, on the other hand, they live it a lot more. And the chivalry code from what they're talking about, in this 12th century and the 1100s, is not what modern day folks will think about chivalry. And it's not even like 20 years ago, because even today we've lost a lot of the chivalry, with women's rights and everything. Women are so silly, or a lot of women are, I don't want you to open the door for me, but back 20, 30 years ago, it was expected, and it was a sign of respect. It was a sign of being chivalrous. It was a good thing to do. It gave honor and respect to the women. Not because we were a weaker sex and we couldn't open the door, but it was a sign of honor and a respect. And it's just too bad that some are so silly to not understand what it really means to be treated like a lady. And it's okay to treat women like a lady. And it's because not a lot of them are anymore, because we've lost the chivalry, because women had a role in chivalry also. And that was to be smart and to be graceful and gracious and to give good counsel. Proverbs 31, a Proverbs 31 woman, she's chivalrous. And unfortunately, we've lost not just the men. And I know a lot of places that I read on the internet, it blamed the men for losing chivalry. And you can't just blame the men. You have to blame the women as well. It's a societal issue. It's not just a gender issue. And so, if you have any more thoughts on that, if you want to discuss that, I'm game. So I wanted to bring that out, that the Normans are going to talk a lot about the chivalry code, but it's really the Saxons who live it out more. And then, I know this is getting a little long, but I wanted to talk about wishing versus hoping. A wish is something that you want that you don't expect to come true. You have very little confidence. And so the king's people, it had become, instead of a hope, like we have hope in Jesus, we have a confidence in Jesus, so we can have hope in everything, and we can have hope because we know He's going to come through for us. We have hope because we have there's a faith aspect to hope because we haven't seen it, and faith is the exercise and having confidence in something that's not seen. And hope, if you're hoping for something better, you have a confidence in something that's not seen yet. And wishing is, well, I wish it's like, well, I wish. But there's no confidence there. And so I think we as Christians need to be very careful about wishing and hoping. You know, we need, and that's one thing that I got through. It's so, God works in such great ways. Because my Bible studying that I'm doing over here just so happens. Of course, you know, Nana doesn't believe in coincidence, but it just so happens that God has tied it together and has said, here, look at this. Here, look at this. Here, this backs this up. And so, faith is being, like I said, faith is being confident in the things that we don't see, because we know. We can discern the Holy Spirit living inside of us. When we open up scriptures, there's things that we don't always get, or we can read that same verse many, many times over, but the lesson that we're going to get from it that time depends on what the Holy Spirit is going to speak to us about that verse, that time that we're reading it. The words on the page haven't changed, and the meanings haven't changed, but the application has. One word, many applications. And so that's like with hope. We can hope in Jesus, but you know, we might wish in Santa Claus or on a star or on a falling star. You know, we might make a wish, or a birthday candle. We might make a wish. We really aren't thinking. We don't really have a whole lot of confidence in that wish. We blow out the candles. You know, we make a wish. It's fun. Oh my word, it's fun. And we can wish, and we can make that wish a hope in Jesus, but a hope can't be a wish. Does that make sense? So, hope. I wanted to make that distinction because I thought, this is something we can hang on to. So, I love you. You have a good day. And then I'm going to make another video, because this one's gotten really long. I hope it uploads. I'll make another video on your homework.